Hi, this is Ethan, once again, talking about promises. Last video, we discussed the concept of unwinding the callbacks. So to review, here we have an append callback, which calls write, and then a write callback, which finally calls done when it's finally finished. And so this is how you've unwound your nested callbacks into something that's much prettier. You basically have each of these defined right here with very simple methods, and then the callbacks are defined separately too, which each callback calling the next person. But you'll notice we still have to handle these errors. We haven't escaped handling them because even if you call read, there's going to be an error, and append, there's going to be a column error, and we have to propagate that error throughout all of our callbacks so that when we finally get to the end, well, if there's an error, we can send it back to the person who called us originally. So it begs the question, is there an easier way? And yes, personally, this is a matter of some taste, I think promises handle this in a much better way. So what is a promise? You're going to have to pardon me a little bit because I'm going to dive into a little of ES6, or the next generation of JavaScript, because that has promises built into it. You can use this in Node 4, which is great, but if you're using Node 0.10, you'll have to add the Harmony flag or something. And there are other implementations of promises, which is a little interesting, but we're going to take a look at the actual version of JavaScript itself. So in ES6, we have the promise, which is just the idea of a different way of handling asynchronous information. So here we define a new promise. And when you define a promise in ES6, it takes two methods, resolve and reject. And the idea is that you can run some asynchronous method, and when you're done, you can either say, congrats, I succeeded, and call resolve, or and congrats, or something bad happened, and you have to reject it. And at first look, this just kind of looks like, well, a different way of handling callbacks, for example. You have fsReadFile, which of course takes the callback. This is ES6 nomenclature. And the callback says there's an error or data. In this promise creation, we say, well, if there's an error, reject the promise. Otherwise, resolve it successfully. And so at first look, it doesn't actually look like there's that much difference from promises and callbacks. But the real power of promises come from two things: the ability to chain a promise and the ability to handle the errors in a promise. We'll dive into both of these topics in our next two videos.